During your presentation, you made an example of Singapore, which is a very good example of people to learn on how to fight corruption. And in fighting corruption, you need to start from top to bottom. You need to start at the tune of the top. And if you see Singapore, their leaders, they have fight corruptions and they have made their stance on corruptions. I can even remember their founding fathers, Lee Kuan Yew, has made a statement like, if he dies and he found that somebody is doing wrong behind him, he will get up and deal with the person. So on that note, the tune at the top was very perfect. So that's why the culture of corruption was limited there. Coming back to the Gambia here, we have seen leaders that have encouraged corruptions. They have not done that much to fight corruption. I started at the tune of the top. It has to cascade down to the institutions and the management. And I can recall vividly last year, our leaders, they made mention about our audit reports, which is a mere opinions. And they cannot act based on those opinions. And making those statements as a head of state and as a leader, how does that affect the culture environment of the Gambia? And how is the ministries are going to take our audit reports seriously? That's my question. But
to have that cultural inclination to copy the good from them. And coming to your question, you're very right that some statements have been made relating to other opinions. I think that were somehow misunderstood or misinterpreted as to what really an opinion is. But I think those things are contextual sometimes. The problem is some of these things are technical. They are very technical in their wording. If you say an opinion, if you say an audit opinion, for example, many people do not appreciate or understand what an audit opinion really is. I'm sure if a non-auditor is said that these people have a qualified audit opinion, many non-auditors will seem to believe that a qualified non-opinion is actually the good opinion. This is qualified. That's just good. Because qualification in your literal meaning means what? For example, somebody is at the best, isn't it? But an unqualified opinion in the technical language is what is the best. For example, if the audit reports comes and say, this is an unqualified opinion, that is the best report. That is the clean report. But if you many of the users, many of the people that use those financial statements or the technical reports that we issue as an office may not have the right appreciation, the right knowledge, the right financial acumen to interpret and understand some of those wordings. And then the interpretational challenges could make people to have their connotations that these things are just mere statements in themselves. However, they are representative of qualitative statements of a good process that has been taken through, a judgment that is made in a methodological and a scientific way, and then to arrive at those conclusions. So the understanding is sometimes the challenge, I believe, and that's where we need forums to educate, to expose, to make people understand and become more aware of some of these things, because there is a technical area, is a technical field, and people do not have the same degree of understanding in those technical. But more importantly, is going and portraying the importance of what is the outcome of actions that people take in those things. This is where now treating the reports with that utmost due diligence that they deserve is what really should be the signal at the highest organizational authorities in those organizations, so that people can see that these are not really merely a report that is just giving you a mere conclusion, but rather it is actually calling for some concerted actions or some concerted efforts to correct some wrongdoings or potential gaps that you have in your organizations. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I want to know, do we have at this point, let's say, a uniform way of measuring, or let's say, do we have uniform indexes on some of these fraud variables for different government entities, can be public and private entities, let's say, in the country here, which maybe possibly preferably measured on an annual basis, which maybe people can access and research? And if we don't have them currently, are they possibly in the works? Or do you think this is something which is not feasible for our country right now?
But you have the corruption index also. I think it's a global corruption index or something like this. I think I am also aware of the Afrobarometer, I think which some of the colleagues here in country are doing. So there are some of these indexes that actually is trying to measure some of those corruption indexes. But I think on a general note also, there is a lot of need for having more data, more information about documenting the data on corruption in country to have a more in sum by statistics on corruption in country. I think this is a very encouraged area that the university probably and other people should take interest in trying to document cases. I am not sure. I once interacted with a researcher, MBA or master student, telling me or wanting to come to see us because he was doing a study on the cases of corruption in the public sector. So maybe these are the type of detailed more studies that we need in order to have a more record of corruption in the country. It's very difficult to find records of corruption apart from the media. You know, you may not have really a reference source apart from the international ones that I've just referred. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Like you apply for something and it took you for a long duration. You cannot have that. So what are the procedures so that you can have your right?
In many organizations, but this could be lacking in also many organizations, but in many organizations, they have what is called grievance policies or complaints policies or suggestion boxes or something like that. I believe these are mechanisms that can be used, but also you have, if, for example, is a particular employee who was supposed to be given a particular a benefit and he doesn't have it. If he is administratively in the general orders, there is a process. You have to first make the person know that your right ABC is not being given to you. So give them the opportunity to give you a response. For example, now you complained, you have given to the management, and the management did not take note of that complaint. You now take the complaint to the governing board. The governing board may also not have acted on your rights or return your rights to you. Then there is where you go to offices like the ombudsman. I don't know whether you know the ombudsman. Is where also you can make a complaint, for example, as an employee who believes has been wrong or that kind of thing. If you are not an employee of that organization, then it is very difficult sometimes if you are asking for a particular privilege or favor, you believe that they are nepotistic, they are not giving you the job, or they're not acting on your request, is challenging. And this is where that we need a country-wide or a societal-wide approach to dealing with this transparency in this process that I've mentioned earlier. We need to be transparent in our processes. When we are advertising for a particular contract, everybody should be given the opportunity so that nobody will come and complain and say that I have bid for this contract. I offered the lowest price. Actually, my price or my bid was the lowest, but you're giving it. In the procurement process, there is a complaint process also. There is what is called a complaint review board. I don't know whether many people are aware of this. There is an office which is created, an independent office under the Minister of Finance, which is called the Complaints Review Board. If you have any procurement complaint, you take it to there. If you have a complaint, your rights are denied in human rights, for example, issues, you take it to the Human Rights Commission. I said, regarding job-related issues, you take it to, for example, the Ombudsman. So there are mechanisms in general that have allowed us to deal with these issues. And there are also, in organizations, there are supposed to be administrative procedures that will actually allow for somebody to raise his concern, his complaint, and this should be in a documented format or mechanism. I hope that answers your question.
In case of Gambia, unfortunately, in my view, comparing to some of these bureaucratic structures will solve the problem. We have seen examples. of you grumbling somewhere. I've been grumbling since I came back, and nothing has been done. But we have what you call the fourth estate. There are three branches of government, yes. The legislature, the judiciary, and the what? The executive, right? They work together to make sure things work. But now we have what they call the fourth estate, the fourth branch of government, which is the media. And of course, now we have the Grand Bantaba. I'm sure you know about that, the Grand Bantaba. Eh? Anybody? Grand Bantaba? What's on Gambias? Once, have you noticed something? Once something gives headlines there, next day it's solved. Have you noticed that? And therefore now, for me, I'm saying all this government bureaucratic structures reported to general orders and this and that. Fine. But for me, those are the work. Once it gets headlines, next morning it's solved. I give you a simple example. Yesterday or so, I saw a road somewhere, broken somewhere in Senegambia area. And the people have been complaining, nothing was done. Once it was the headline there, the GRA was there, trying to fix it. So I say that things have changed a bit, but now we have the media around, which is the fourth estate. I think we have to utilize it and make sure that, because I don't want to see myself in the headlines. And therefore, doctors do so also. Oh, I don't want to see that. Therefore, I perform my duty properly. So I would suggest that maybe we utilize the fourth estate as much as possible. As long as we go to the governmental complaint bureaus and all these kind of things, for me, for my experience, it will work. But since I've been grumbling about some things, and nothing has been done. But once I appoint the media, it will be done next day. Thank you.
In your office, as an Auditor General, how can audit practices be improved and enhanced in order to be improved in a more transparent and accountable way to fight corruption, specifically in government, when it comes to procurement in government contracts and resource mobilization? So I want you to, I actually came late. I don't know whether you have discussed this issue, but I would really appreciate if you can elaborate on it.
A lot with less. For example, to enable us to find challenges or to enable us to do a more effective assessment of those kind of contracts that involves, that may have fraud in them. If you understand very well in auditing techniques, data analytics, as I was talking about, is one of the, in my presentation, I talk about data analytics. It is one way of enhancing the auditor's capability in analyzing a lot of data to see a particular pattern, to see that, for example, this organization, if you look at all their payments or their procurement contracts, the awards are going to one particular supplier. That data analysis will give you this kind of indication, this kind of red flags. And also, but the most important part is, first of all, creating the professional knowledge, the awareness, the staff capacity, building the staff capacity in order to be able to understand these challenges. For example, in the NAO, before I arrived, there was not a certified fraud examiner. But now we have about 10 or more certified fraud examiners. So this is a qualification that is geared toward making the staff themselves be aware of what is fraud in the first place. Before you can pick something, you have to know it. So if you know it, then you can be able to enable yourself in your audit practices to build up tests that will allow you to pick those kind of crimes. So for me, creating awareness was one of the most important tools, one of the most important issues that we have to deal with. And then addition to that, we will now create give them the tools and the techniques which we mentioned about the computer-assisted audit techniques that will allow the staff to be more efficient in their searches if they are confronted with those kind of challenges in the field. I hope that answers your question. But also understanding the government or the government environment. The particular environment, we have to understand the type of schemes that have been perpetuated in our environment. We have to be tipped off on those type of procurement fraud. That is why we encourage whistleblowers to come up open. And this is very, very important to help us to understand that certain things are happening in